Mainstream religions teach of an existence of a soul. Let us look at some of these teachings in brief. Judaism. In Hebrew, the nephesh is referred to as the soul. Ruach, meaning wind, and neshama, meaning breath, are used to describe the soul. The soul is believed to be given by God to a person when he or she takes his first breath, as mentioned in Genesis. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. It is worthwhile pointing out that Jewish theology does not agree on the nature of an afterlife. The soul is said to return to God after death. In Christianity, the Christian view of the soul is based upon teachings of both the Old and the New Testament. The Old Testament contains the statements, "Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it." And further, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Hinduism. In Hinduism, the Sanskrit word most closely corresponding to a soul are Jiva, Atman, and Purusha, meaning the individual self. All three major schools of Hindu philosophy agree, on the basis of the Vedic revelation, that the Atman or Jivatman, the individual self, is related to Brahman, the immensity, or the supreme self of the universe, Paramatman. But they differ in nature and their relationships. In Islam, the Quran states, "So when I have fashioned him completely and breathed into him," meaning Adam, "the soul which I created for him, then fall you down, prostrate yourselves unto him." The Quran is speaking of the first creation of man, Adam. So again, we see that in the Quran, the soul comes from the breath of God. The remaining part of the verse, God demands that the angels prostrate themselves before Adam and worship the living soul. So we can see that the mainstream religions, philosophers, and many others subscribe to an existence of a soul. As we have stated in our previous presentation, the human being is made up of three distinct physical entities. And as we can see now from these three distinct yet interwoven entities: the body, the mind, and the soul. We say physical for the soul in this case, although understanding that the soul itself is not physical. Rather, it serves a purpose to describe it as such, as being part of the physical body, as in this case. You might say, "Okay, I know what philosophers and religion says, but how can I be sure there is a soul? Or more importantly, how do I know if I have a soul?" There are many ways that one knows that one has a soul. Perhaps a simple way of proving such a concept is to take it a step at a time. Pinch yourself. The feeling you are getting is in your body. You have proven that you feel physical interactions with your body, in this case a physical pinch. We also know that the body is nourished with food. Sustenance of the body is food. To maintain the body, we need physical exercise. I'm sure all of us will agree with this statement. Next, we have the mind, or the intellect. You are listening to what I am saying. You are reasoning and comparing what I am saying with your previous knowledge, or what you have learnt or have been taught. This is your mind at work, your intellect. Food for the mind or intellect is learning. Learning expands a person's mind. Exercise for the mind is rationalizing to our own individual capabilities of what is probable and what is not. What is a fact as we see it and what is not. This rationalization or balancing in our mind is what we call exercising the mind. So the mind is like a computer of sorts. It processes information that we input. It controls the body. It is based on logic. Its goal is logic. Okay, so the body is a physical object. The mind, even though connected to the body, is not physical. It is a process of learning and knowing, or at least knowing is a goal of the mind. This we call rational thinking. But then what about all those other things? For those out there that believe in God, how do you know of God? Not through physical feel, and not through, as we call it, rational thinking, because we cannot compare God with anything. Hence, how can we rationalize the existence of God? And those people out there that are rational thinkers, where does benevolence come from? Why would you sacrifice your life for someone else? Give charity, feel compassion, feel love, and similar feelings or drives. If these feelings and drives don't benefit your own body, then they are not and do not come from one's physical body. And how does money or giving charity to save flood victims or earthquake victims or to the impoverished that may be on the other side of the world, how does that make sense? Does it improve or sustain your own body? No. Does it make logical sense? You certainly don't have money to spare, so it can't be an intelligent or logical thing to do. It doesn't expand your knowledge, so it doesn't benefit the mind either. So where do such actions come from if they are not physical body-based and not logical to the mind? Can we not then attribute such actions as morality to our souls, or benevolent, loving, and righteous souls? Most of us acknowledge the existence of a soul. We may call it different things. We may even call it the I, or the awareness, but it points to the same thing.